Don't worry.
Yeah.
You're looking good.
Thank you. Wow. Good morning, everyone, and hello. I'm Mohammed Sharafuddin. Everybody calls me Sharaf, and today I have the pleasure of hosting Christine Galler. And how are you, Christine? She's a master certified coach with a past experience in multinational companies. Good morning, Christine, and thank you for
Good
accepting
morning,
this
Sarah.
invitation. Yeah, good morning. Yeah.
Thanks for having me here. And I have to say that, well, Sharaf is a professional certified coach from ICF, and he's also an expert in conflict resolution. He has a long track record in the technology industry.
Thank you.
So what's going to be our topic today, Sharaf?
I believe today we're going to talk about the emotional intelligence. This is our 6th episode for those who are following this series. And today we're going to talk about how to integrate emotions to enhance decision making, because this is something I believe.
Oh, right. Okay, so the first point I have is why our decisions are sometimes do not produce the expected results. Okay, what it is that we don't approach correctly or not maybe entirely, what are the elements we do not really consider? Okay, and let me ask you, Sharaf, if you think about your past decisions, okay, what were the characteristics of those decisions that you felt unsatisfactory?
Well, there are many factors, but most of them were about I didn't acknowledge some voices that were
Yes.
there. I didn't understand how they are relevant to the decision. Like I was something like, I had anxiety. I didn't understand where it came from, but I didn't acknowledge, the reason for that and integrate it in my decision. I had maybe some voices around me of some people around me who are in the system who are very they are fearing things or afraid of things, or maybe telling me some concerns, and I didn't actually. I just so it's mostly just moving and
Just moving ahead,
Yeah.
towards your goal.
Yeah.
Well, this is something that also sounds familiar to me. And in fact, well, that kind of reaction had also led me in the past to consider only some aspects, ignoring some others. Sometimes I realized I wanted so much something that I did completely misread the cues that were around me. Or sometimes, although, sometimes my decisions were not at that top when I was kind of overwhelmed or guiding by a lot of emotions, but that I was not decoding properly. I was even not stopping to think about, hey, what's going on? I'm referring to anger, frustration, eventually, or sometimes also enthusiasm. Yeah. So let's consider also the conditions we are in and how they affect our decision making. So in this kind of unprecedented times, what we realize is that the level of uncertainties is getting higher and higher. So how do people make their way and make their decisions in that context? What have you noticed on your side?
Yeah, actually, from my side, I see that at these days, I see many of the leaders are running out of survival.
Yeah.
They're in a way they're running, and I learned it from one of my mentors. I see leaders moving as headless chicken everywhere. They're just doing more of what they're used to do without looking at the big picture and re-strategizing. They're not giving themselves enough time to re-strategize and then do a smart move.
Okay. So there's something about strategizing, I would say. Okay.
Yeah.
And stopping instead of rushing to actions. Okay. Very quickly. And in fact, this is one of the things I've also observed on my end. That some people tend to rush to action just because they feel reassured that hopefully or thankfully something good will come out of those actions. But there's little thought. And there's a lot of anxiety to produce a kind of result. I would say that on the other hand, I could also see some people, get completely frozen in a way. So they just stop and wait for what? For getting more information, maybe also for better times to come.
Yeah.
Uh, and this kind of let's say staying, so much without doing anything damage also the business, because not doing something is also a kind of decision. People very often we forget about that, right? But not doing is a decision. It's not like not making a decision.
Yeah. And actually, the big thing about it, that when they freeze, it's about, that they feel, like they freeze when they're totally de-energized. Most of the leaders I know, when
Mhm.
they just shut themselves down
Yeah.
and stop totally taking any kind of actions.
Hmm.
You can imagine. And actually they start, like, coming in a cocoon or something, and then sometimes they come out with depression, they come out with personality disorders, they come out with things, with burning out sometimes. They're because they don't do it, like, they're hibernating or reflecting or re-strategizing. It's out of being
Yeah.
overwhelmed and stuck, and then they're just
Yeah. And I,
acted.
and I guess maybe in the future, in another episode, we might also talk about how to recover a certain level of energy.
Yeah.
Because this is really a kind of theme and topic that I see also coming up quite strongly
Mhm.
during my coaching sessions.
Mhm.
People saying, well, especially when you have people that are in lockdown, okay, saying they feel their energy level is down and they have an issue looking at all the possibilities they have in front of them, actually. So the
Mhm.
opportunities, but that's going to be for another episode. So if we go back to decision making now, what happens is that we have also people, let's say, becoming very strongly risk avoidant.
Yeah.
So up to a point that sometimes instead of seeing an opportunity as an opportunity, they absolutely want to see the threat inside the
Oh.
opportunity. Think about all the time spent in doing worst case business scenarios.
Yeah.
Okay. If you spend too much time on that, how to keep the energy and the enthusiasm for the actions? You know,
Yeah.
you tend to have model your brain in such a way that you just look at the side of it and not everything.
Yeah.
But um, all of this is guided by what, according to you? Is there something in our body? Is there something that leads us to have that kind
Yeah.
of reactions?
I guess it's a very primitive, Christine, and I believe it comes down to our primitive reptilian brain. When it comes to the amygdala, the stress. Maybe you had some lights on the optimism, the last interview,
Yeah.
and you framed very well this kind of, how positive optimism, or can be integrated. But now I believe in decision making now, and in movement, we need to understand more about it. How the amygdala makes this work. Yeah.
Yeah. And what basically the what our amygdala does is that just give us some kind of three main strategies. Either you freeze, so you don't do anything, just hoping that nothing is going to happen to you, or you escape the situation. So that could be avoiding situations, avoiding making decisions, avoiding conflicts, or you might attack. Okay, so
Yeah.
attack meaning in business fighting, you know. But when we are guiding by all of this, what is important as well to notice that our amygdala shuts down our empathy, shuts down our creativity, shuts down. You were talking about listening, and saying listening to different voices. But it also shuts down our listening in a way, and our sociability. So, this is the impact of what our brain does when it perceives threats. And actually, what is also interesting to know is that our brain looks at, I would say, uncertainties and changes as threats. So we understand why sometimes in business it's so difficult to be, I would say, driven by, let's say, a more positive attitude towards change. Um, Another thing is maybe you. So, how to connect all of this with decision making? What do you
Well,
think?
I guess I can tell, that when I told you that when I was, taking these decisions like woof without looking and around me, I may share a personal story that, I recognize that I have fear just
Mm-hmm.
in my late 30s.
Yeah,
Despite I was working as a coach, for something like 5 years before that. I started in my
yeah,
early 30s coaching, but I recognized my fear in the after maybe in 2015 or something, 6 years back. I recognized my anxiety, something like in 2016, 17.
yeah.
So in a way, I believe that when I build this kind of self awareness, understanding my emotions in a better way, I
Yeah.
believe it helped me a lot to relate and understand these voices. When I'm coming back to this question that you asked me in the beginning of the episode, what's
Yeah.
and now I can see that that it was actually hijacking me, the fears
Mm-hmm.
and being frozen, being and actually I sometimes I took this march of fighting all the time. I was
Yeah.
just, this was a fight mode. This was not like a flight or something. That was, I just kick, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
So
So,
I would love to learn from you also what kind of situations you find um with leaders, because this is my own personal reflection, how it happens,
well, how it happens, I guess that, well, there's one first thing, and maybe before moving to that, we can also say, well, I guess what happens sometimes is that leaders and we could also say ourselves, we don't really listen to ourselves. Okay, there's a
Mhm.
lot happening inside our body and our brain, but we simply don't want to acknowledge. We just want to focus on the goal, on the objective. So what happens is that we have physical reactions. Sometimes our body tells us something. On my end, it's when I really feel that my heart is starting to beat strongly. I feel that I'm a kind of fuzzy, my brain doesn't work properly. Or I feel that my stomach starts to shrink. Okay, so there's something going on here. And when I stop listening to that, I know that there's a signal. A signal to do what? And a signal to try to dig in, to understand that better. So that's really, I would say, the first thing. The second thing is something a bit more intellectual. It's about, okay, stop for a moment as leaders and as people being in the business, but as well in life. And you say, hey, I feel there's something that is just working in me. What is that? Okay, where am I standing now? What kind of reactions am I having? Am I freezing? Am I escaping? Am I fighting? Okay. And how do I exit from that situation? What do I need to exit? Do I need information? Do I need advices? Do I simply need to take a rest and let it go down and understanding what's happening? Do I need some sharing with others?
Mhm. That's a lot of self-reflection questions. I think it's really impressive, to pause, reflect, personally reflect what's happening, having
Yeah.
this kind of series of questions, and then moving. But I can you were talking, in the from a little bit about integrating your emotions, feeling your body sensations, and
Mhm.
checking in with your breath, with your. So
Yes.
how can I recognize this? I first recognized this in a very, in very advanced workshop, when I
Mhm.
started looking at. So how do you look at, integrating both of these questions that are coming in from the
Yeah.
mind and the body sensations, and locking them together in a,
Altogether.
yeah.
Well, I guess, well, it depends very much on how much. If you are more physical, for instance, and you say you tend to be more in tune with your body, you can say, hey, do I perceive something which is going differently? And then once you feel that, because that's a physical sensation, okay, then train your mind to ask a question to yourself. What am I facing? Why am I reacting this way? What my body is trying to tell me. In the
Mhm.
past, when I had those reactions, physical reactions, when was that?
Mhm.
So there's it's just the fact of acknowledging. That could be also a kind of emotional, checkup. You say to yourself, okay, I want to train myself to do this. The first thing I do is that 2 or 3 times a day I take less than 1 minute just to ask myself, how am I doing? How do I feel? How my body is reacting? Anything that I felt very strongly physically today? Any kind of emotion that something has disturbed me today? Okay. Or did I feel simply so much happy because of? That just, you just acknowledge that. So
Yeah.
if you take a situation where you are, let's say that I'm stuck in front of a business situation, and let's say that part of me sees it as an opportunity, but another part of me feels that there's something really not completely right. Something like I'm missing information eventually, but I'm disturbed by something I cannot really spot. So, in the past, I was used to counterbalance that by my rationality. So, I would need more data. Absolutely. I would need to find the evidences, so the data around me, let's say, to back up my kind of decision or the kind of goal I had. Nowadays, I just stop and say, well, okay, here there's something that appears not to be totally right. Okay. If that is not right because it's not aligned with a deeper sense of myself where I want to go, about the mission that I feel I have, do I feel it disconnected from the overall direction I'm taking? Is that so? Well, it could also be, well, that there's something wrong with the people I'm about to work with, as well. And is that thing which is it feels wrong? Okay, where does it come from? So, sometimes I simply perceive some kind of mismatch between words, actions, and intentions. And
Mhm.
so it's like bumping, like, a red light, flashing and saying, well, there's an alert here. Okay, so, all of this gives me some insight, let's say, and eventually help me to get unlocked.
Yeah. I actually, while you're talking about, how this happens inside the internal arena of oneself, and I'm looking to leaders who are actually their decisions are impacting their systems around them, also their
Yeah.
employees and their. So this kind of check-in question, if a leader does for himself, I believe there are others who are impacted by this decision. They're having other bodily symptoms also. They're having other anxieties, other,
Hmm.
questions to ask. So how can this be also, integrated, like putting this all together, like, looking emotions as allies. That's if we're looking at it, inside ourselves, and
Yeah.
actually how looking at how am I reacting. There are others who are having different reactions also in the same group,
Yeah.
or in the same, or dependents,
Hmm.
and when I told you about this shutting down, I didn't look at them, and it fired back at me in the end.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I understand that. So, there's one thing we can do here is to leverage on our sequential thinking. Now, sequential thinking is one of our emotional intelligence competency, where we evaluate what are the pros and cons of the situation. So, sometimes it might sound like a paradox because actually it's really linking to emotions and it's bringing together rationality together with emotions. Okay.
Yeah.
When we are in a situation where we are stressed, we tend to label our emotions as being negative. Yeah, as you were saying, what we want to do is look at emotions are potential allies. Okay, they are messages senders in a way. Okay, so here, what we can do, okay, this sequential thinking help us to evaluate both pros and cons, cause effect. So you will tell me, well, all of this is very rational. This is what every person in business or in the tech industry is doing. Fine. What the news here is to integrate as well the emotional part, and as you said, well, we could also have a look at any tool potentially to do that. And regarding that kind of tool, well, I would say I'd like to share something. This is a very simple tool, but it has proven to work very well. The point here is how does it work? You have 3 steps. The first one is you want to clarify what you want from that decision. Okay.
Mhm.
And the second step is to say, well, what do I want from that decision is not only from a rational standpoint, but
Mhm.
also from an emotional level. So what do I want for me at an emotional level? What do I want that is going to happen with such a decision at a rational standpoint? So you first have some kind of self-empathy to yourself, considering as well your emotional needs. That could be as well your physical needs. Why not? Because we know that emotions and body speak to each other.
Yeah.
But there's a second step there. The second step is integrating others.
Mhm.
Is spend some time to say to yourself, well, okay, but that decision, who's that? Oh, it will impact some other people. Who are they? What do I want for them out of that decision? What do I want for the others out of that decision? Okay.
Mhm.
And at emotional standpoint, but as well from a rational standpoint. So when you start having that kind of more of a holistic view, then you feel more aligned with yourself. You feel more in peace. Potentially you feel that all the signals that you had, all the confusion that you had in mind, okay, where are actually, they tend to speak to each other, they slow down, okay, and you feel far more energized. So your next step then becomes, okay, what is going to be the action I will do to move forward?
Yes.
Yeah. And what is the first step that I can do to make things work better? I can tell you that I could see it looks a very simple tool. Actually, it's very
Yeah.
simple. When I started to use it on myself, I was really, completely astonished about its power.
Yeah.
Okay, and the kind of elements that were coming out of it. And I've
Yeah.
seen that some other, business people I've been working with as a coach found that quite useful as well. So that could be, something very simple
Mm.
to be used.
And I guess if I give others also chance to speak this for themselves and actually have a conversation, it would be an amazing. And I see here a lot of, and here, yani, I believe that recognizing others' emotions, their emotional needs, because there are some things that can't be explained, it just bubbles up, inside your body,
Yeah,
inside your heart. And sometimes you can't just put some tags on it, or maybe the tags or
yeah,
the wordings or putting any vocabulary on it may be very premature,
yeah,
but it is
yeah.
just, it is just what it is, you know.
It's just
And
what it is. Mm,
yeah, and it's a message, and I just have to I just
yeah,
have to just align that it's a message, and it has to take its space and evolve.
yeah,
Maybe
yeah.
maybe having such discussions after everybody in the system or in the team, like if we're a board of members in a company, if we are
Sure.
a team that's having each one has his chance to do this, and then we have a discussion. I believe it will take it to a next level of maturity, which
Oh,
is,
for sure.
it's a
That would be
total.
very powerful because,
Yeah.
that would also say, well, talking about what we feel about decisions
Yeah.
and what we sense about
Yeah.
decisions, apart from our rationality, that's okay.
Yeah.
This
You
is
can.
our way. We have a level of trust that allows us to talk about decisions as well from other standpoints.
And here I believe that the trust and safety is a key word here to keep
Yeah.
this happening. And for if we go back again to the amygdala and what's happening when
Yeah.
you're at fear,
Yeah.
fight, flight, or freeze, I believe this is not a space where safety can happen. Where if the leader or the facilitator is in a place of mistrust, or in a place where flight or freeze, or a place where it will not enable the team and the team members and the others around them to actually have this privilege of speaking up and having
Yeah.
this safety, so that they can voice out their emotions and what they want for themselves and for the others,
Yeah.
and accept whatever in the space that it is what it is. That's
Yeah. Yeah. But
it's
you know,
Mhm.
so that's for sure that we need to, well, we need a bit of training about that. Okay.
Yeah.
And the first point is asking ourselves, well, am I again starting to react in a certain way? So do I see a kind of pattern in the way I'm acting? If there's a
Yeah.
pattern behind, there might be something also driven by our amygdala. Not always said, but sometimes yes.
Yeah.
And it's simply about stopping some automatisms that we have in our action, okay,
Yeah.
and start doing this differently. I guess that's not the only point. We talked about putting the rationality together with our emotions. We talk about sensing, so stopping a moment and asking ourselves, what am I doing? Is there are there some information that I'm not integrating? Are there some voices that I'm not listening to? Okay, all of this is very positive. But what about the cultural impact in our
Yeah.
decisions? And
That's a very good evolution for the discussion, because not all cultures can accept these kind of questions.
okay, so well, let's try to see what we get, out of our decision making. I would say, and let's see how they can, let's say, how our cultural aspects and the culture we're in, but the culture we're also talking to, might view at decision making in a different way. So there's someone who has worked very strongly on that. She's called Erin Meyer. She's professor at at INSEAD in Paris, and she has identified, by looking at so many cultures and working on so many cultures, she has identified some small scales, 8 in total, to decode our cultural differences. And the two that are really at play when talking about decision making. First, there's one called decision making, and another one is leading. So in the decision making one, the deciding skills goes from being consensual, meaning looking for kind of anonymous kind of agreement, to being top down, saying where the decision is mainly led by the boss. So if you think about France, that I'm France and Italy, the country where I'm living at the moment. So here there are more positions slightly towards top down. I was wondering, on your side in Egypt, how is that, or how would that feel? What's your sensation?
It's until now, if you look at the older generations, like
Yeah,
it's the baby, the until maybe the born in 1970s, end of 1970s, or
yeah,
Generation X, you can see that it's mostly
yeah.
mostly hierarchical. It's coming from top down,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
and
Okay.
I guess the new generations are mostly egalitarian. So there is a transition. You want to come to those who are born after 80s are mostly
Yeah.
going for
Mm-hmm.
a more egalitarian. They're influenced by the globalization and what happened in the term. Since the Arab Spring. 10 years back.
Yeah.
So there is a shift in the leadership that's happening inside
Yeah.
but mostly still it's dominated by hierarchical structures. This is what's happening.
Okay.
Mm.
Okay, so you see, you're also anticipating one thing. You're talking about the leadership. So, in fact, well, the reactions, if we are talking to a certain kind of cultures that are more egalitarian, okay, some of these are more hierarchical. France and Italy, again, they tend to be more on the hierarchical side. Okay,
Mm.
so we, instead of expecting that the whole decision is going to make by a group, we need
Mm.
to acknowledge that it's going to make probably by one person,
Mhm.
in that case. Okay. And we need to identify who is going to make that decision. If you think about the sales guy, okay, that would
Mm.
be crucial to his success. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you think about the new generation, and being egalitarian, that's for sure an aspect to take into consideration if you want to retain talents.
Yeah.
And say to yourself, okay, how do we make that mix, generational mix, working? But coming
Yeah.
back to decision making, for sure, we need to take into consideration, do we want to be consensual, so group driven, or more top down? And the people we have in the room, what do they tend to do? Okay. And I have to say that, just to say that, let's say that the decisions that we take, okay, have to consider in a way our decision making and our cultural aspects. I would say so. What can help us in synthesis to come to better decisions? Well, it's really mixing together thoughts, emotion, actions plus the cultural context. Okay, and I would say that that would be it. Take a holistic view, take a little kind of make intentional decisions, not impulsive one.
Yes.
So, having said that, thanks, Sharaf. I see that we have reached our 30 minutes program. So thanks for hosting this program together with me. I really appreciated that. And our next episode will be on one of your specialty. That's going to happen on January the 18th, and that you will tell us about change and transformation. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Christine. And it's really amazing how you went. We call it this, and how you actually supported, and how emotions can be integrated in decision making, and that actually definitely it supports in transformation and change, especially with disclosure of the cultural map. I guess it's pieces building on each other. So thanks for that.
Exactly. So thank you a lot. Thank you to everybody. Next episode on January 18th, and watch out, you will see Sharaf posting the link on LinkedIn in some few days. Okay. Goodbye and have a great start of the year. Bye.
Bye-bye.